What can we say about Michael? I actually polled some of his former classmates, and most of the stuff we can say, I can't say here. This will be a G-rated discussion, and I promise we won't get into too many details. Mike arrived to Tussey Terrace about 44 years ago. Wow, a long time ago. And he was their neighbor. He was coming from Juniata from the day-to-day supervision of the colonel, your father. Very nice gentleman. He stopped briefly to meet the judge and spent a few days there. Needless to say, Mike was ready for Juniata. But was Juniata ready for Mike? It was just like an episode of Fresh Off the Boat. Any of you ever see that show? All right, well, okay. Coming from Japan, where Mike was a Army brat, is that correct? This was a new experience for him, living in a permanent place for an extended period of time. Having a roommate, having less structure than he was used to. So it was truly a good experience. Alas, the man with the golden locks. And the freckles who had shoulder-length blonde hair. Yes, time has a wonderful thing. Mike was always happy, he was smiling, even through his various roommates. Most people have issues with roommates when they're freshmen and coming to school. Mike had some unique issues. I would just share two of the stories. His first roommate, an expat, fled back somewhere through the dark of night. He was here for a few months. The next thing we knew, he was in Canada and then back to the UK. I don't know what happened, Mike. Second roommate, on the heels of the person leaving, going back, was closely observed, analyzed, and became a local guest of the PSP. That was number two, and we're not even halfway through the year yet. I will not go into any more details of Mike's roommates, but needless to say, Irene, Mike's partner, there's something to be concerned with here. Smiling through life, giving back is part of his life. Mike started and maintained the first pain clinic in Kauai. As a practicing Buddhist, Mike's life pronounces the articles of the faith. His humanitarian efforts are highlighted by his rotoplastic personal commitment for over 16 years. He's been in thousands of places, traveled thousands of miles, and in most continents, and in towns and cities where Google is still trying to find out where they're located. Mike's partner, Irene, also attends with him on many of these trips. His passion for helping in remote areas and helping people smile again, and also in this local community, is outstanding and worth a record and for any Juniata. To share something from his favorite poet, every silver lining has a touch of gray. It is all right. I will get by. I will survive. To Mike, my good friend, occasional fishing buddy, who I see either in Hawaii or New York once a year, it's time to read the citation. Whereas Michael D. Johnston, a member of the class of 1977, has provided selfless service to his local and global community, and whereas graduating with a Bachelor of Science degree in biology from Juniata College, he earned his Doctor of Medicine degree from Temple University School of Medicine in 1981, and completed an internship at the Lancaster General Hospital in 1982. And whereas through the National Health Service Corps, which serves their most vulnerable population who may otherwise go without care, he practiced emergency medicine in Lee County Community Hospital, Virginia, from 1982 to 1987. And whereas, after completing his residency in anesthesia at the University of Vermont in 1990, he became the attending anesthesiologist with the Kauai Medical Clinic and the Wilcox Medical Center, a position which he continues to serve today. In 2001, he first joined Rotoplast International in a mission to help children and their families worldwide by eliminating the burden of cleft lip, cleft palate, burn scarring, and other deformities. Whereas in the years since, he has participated in over 25 overseas medical missions, traveling thousands of miles to perform life-changing surgeries on more than 2,500 children in countries such as Philippines, Peru, Venezuela, Vietnam, China, Bangladesh, India, Ethiopia, Liberia, Togo, Egypt, and many more. And whereas as a result of his effort, he was honored by the Rotary Club of Kauai with a Great Humanitarian Award in 2006 for exemplifying Rotary International's motto of service above self. And whereas Mike was named to the Rotoplast International Board of Directors in 2012, a role he continues to serve. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this award is presented to him in recognition of his lifetime achievements in humanitarian efforts. It is an honor and a privilege to present Michael D. Johnston, class of 1977, with the prestigious William Swigart Alumni Humanitarian Award by the direction of the Alumni Council.
Actually, Carl said pretty much everything as far as my history here and things like that, and my interesting history here. Yeah, I went through roommates like a lot of people go through underwear for some reason. That said, for all of us, Juniata is a special place in our hearts. I come from a long history of Juniata graduates. In the audience here is my aunt, Sandy, who was the class of 1969. I have 3 cousins who went here, another uncle, 2 grandparents, and my nephew, Josiah, who was the class of 2020. He was also in the audience. One of the things that I learned here, or when I came here, I was interested in going to medical school, but somewhere along the line, I think in the winter of 1973, I met a man by the name of Jim Gooch, who is in the audience here also, who became a professor and a friend and a mentor. I was here to learn biology, and the first time I met this guy, he was teaching me Greek literature. How does that work? Well, that's how Juniata works. And the one thing that I have to say about Juniata that I have to give great thanks for is a lifetime of not only a liberal arts education, but as well as a lifetime of wanting to learn. Flash forward to the public health service, and then when I was a resident in anesthesia at the University of Vermont, one of my professors by the name of Dave Smale took a trip with a group called Interplast, and he went to the Dominican Republic, and he came back and he was full of excitement about what he had done, which was operate on children with cleft lips and cleft palates. And his enthusiasm, as well as just sort of an interest of mine in doing stuff like that, piqued an interest in me. And at that point in time, I asked as a resident if I could go along on a trip like this. Well, I never got the chance. I mean, residency and you're busy and things like that. A couple years go by. I'm, as you can tell from either reading or how I'm dressed, I live in Hawaii. I've lived there for 27 years. And after approximately 10 years of working and being happy, reach a little point of fatigue in our jobs where we ask, is this all there is? What else is there that we can do in life? I have a house, I have a pickup truck. Surely there's something more. Anyway, I'm being facetious. But there was a particular day when one of our nurses in the hospital, a man by the name of D.Q. Jackson, who was a Rotarian. You might ask, are there any Rotarians in the audience? All I can say is, God bless you guys for the things that you do. D.Q. Jackson was a Rotarian. And he came to me and he said, Michael, how would you like to go overseas on a medical mission? And it was one of those sort of just harmonic convergences of, perfect storms. And I said, sure, I'd like to do that. And in 2001, I went to Cebu City in the Philippines with a group called Rotoplast. And shameless promotion here at www.rotoplast.org. We're largely funded by the Rotary Clubs. It's an organization that does cleft lip, cleft palate operations worldwide. We also do burns and other congenital deformities that we can. But our primary mission is cleft lips and palates. I went to Cebu City, and on our first day of clinic, saw over 250 children with cleft lip and cleft palate deformities that had either, some of the kids had already had surgeries on their lips and were waiting to do their palates. And we saw every one of these kids. Every one of these kids, of course, has a story. This is the Philippines, one of the poorest countries in the world. These are some of the poorest kids in the poorest countries. And on that trip, we fixed over 125 cleft lips and palates. On the first day of work, I plugged in a monitor plugged a 120 volt monitor into the 220 volt circuit. Tried the monitor and I thought, okay, my career is over. The day after that, the woman who was the head nurse, who was also the coordinator of the medical teams, came to me and asked me to pull me aside and wanted to talk to me. And I thought, God, she wants me to pay for the monitor. She opened up a folder she had in her hand, and there was a calendar in it. And she said, when can you go on your next trip? Two things happened. One, I knew I was okay. And the second is that opened the door for where I am today. Since then, I've gone on, I don't know how many trips, 25 plus, to the places that Carl has mentioned. And a couple of stories have stood out about why I do this. The first was there in Cebu City when a 9-year-old child, who was the son of a woman who worked in a bar, who was born with a cleft lip and palate, and the child was abandoned at birth by the mother. He was around 9 years old, and he realized now that he was different. He had been taken in by an, quote, aunt. I'm not sure whether she was a genetic aunt or not, but it was the woman he called mommy. We operated on this child, and as is our habit, our recovery nurses bring along a small vanity mirror to show the children who are old enough what they look like. So in the recovery room, they show this child his new face as he's emerging from anesthesia. The aunt is there, and the first words out of his mouth are, "Mommy, mommy, now I can sing." Wasn't a dry eye in the place. Another event that happened, which sealed what I do, was on my second trip. I was in Tacna, Peru, which is in the bottom of Peru, down by the Chilean border. And we operated on a 15-year-old girl who had a large bilateral cleft lip deformity. And she had actually had it repaired. She was coming back for a revision, and actually sort of a complex procedure where you take a little bit of the lower lip, put it up to the upper lip, and sew their mouth shut, and then you come back and divide it. Gives them some fullness. It gives them an upper lip. Well, they have to stay in the hospital because their mouth is sewn shut for about a week or so. And, I get to know her. We have to go see her every day on rounds. She's speaking Spanish. I'm speaking to her through a translator. What do you want to do in life? Oh, I want to go to college. What do you want to study? I'd like to study English. What do you want to do? Oh, I'd like to help kids, who have the same problem as I do, and stuff like this. Just a, wonderful girl. Had to post her pictures with her while we were there. 5 years later, I'm in La Arroya, Peru, which is a hospital at 14,000 feet in the Peruvian Andes. This girl shows up. She's now 20 years old. She's there with her mother. She comes to see us. She speaks to us in perfect English. What are you doing? I'm in college. What are you majoring in? English and computer science. Are you getting good grades? Yes, I am. She's speaking to us in perfect English, by the way. Anything else going on in your life? She leans over. And as it happened to be, the surgeon who had done the original surgery was also with me on that trip, who was a dear, dear friend. She leaned over to us and she said, I have a boyfriend. What do we want in life? Think Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Shelter, food, family, protection, self-actualization. We all want to grow up and be loved and have a loved one and have a significant relationship with someone else. And this girl had. And before this, with this face, with this deformity, there's no way that that could have happened. These events and events that have occurred on countless trips have cemented my reason, my dedication, my whatever, why this needs to be done, why I do this. I want to thank my wife, who for the last 17 years has put up with me taking our vacation time to go all over the planet, and we don't go to garden spots. I want to thank my coworkers who give me time off to do this. And I want to thank my friends for being supportive. I want to thank Juniata for giving me the education and giving me the mindset to pursue a life like this. I think Dick Winters, who was a major in the, the 82nd Airborne, when they asked him, he had a grandchild who asked him, Grandpa, were you a hero? And he said, no, I wasn't, but I served with heroes. And I can say that the men and women that I travel with are my heroes. We go 12 to 15 times a year and work in some pretty poor countries to take care of some of the most poorest children in the world. Many of these volunteers are retirees or active missions. One of them is the retired chairman of plastic surgery at the Children's Hospital in Philadelphia, Don LaRosa, who was chairman of plastic surgery at the University of Pennsylvania. No small deal. Was the author of a textbook about this day entitled Cleft Lip, Cleft Palate Surgery. I walked into an operating room in Cebu City in the Philippines, and there was this gentleman who was in his 70s at the time, bent over a wooden table, because they didn't have an operating room table, operating on a very, very small child. Mozart was playing in the background on a small set of portable speakers. Here was the man who probably was the world's expert on cleft lips and cleft palates. And here he was quietly operating on the poorest children in the world. And for that, and the honor to work with these men and women, I am forever grateful. And to Juniata, and to the alumni, I'm also very thankful for this. Thank you very much.